Hey everyone. So we are here today to talk about the steps and procedures when submitting an offer on a property. So I always like to use real life examples, exactly the scenario that if you were working with a buyer. So I'm going to use an example in this specific instance. This is a real life buyer that I'm working with. So here are the documents you're going to need. I put it together in my notepad here. Number one is the as is residential contracts. Of course, this is just the offer itself. There is the seller's disclosure. This is going to come from the seller's agent. HOA disclosure. This is also going to come from the seller side. The compensation agreement, which is basically the commission. We have the wire fraud disclosure. This one is from EXP. We have affiliated business disclosure. This one is also from EXP. We have the buyer broker agreement, the exclusive buyer broker agreement. This is the agreement that allows us to represent the buyer ever since the NAR changes. So this is going to be from Dotloop. And then we have the buyer's pre-approval letter from the lender or their proof of funds. This is going to come from the buyer. So I have the subject property here pulled up on the MLS already. The typical way that I like to do it is I go under search and then just press quick. And a lot of times, the property that I'm working on, I'll just put in the street number and then I'll hit results here on the bottom. And mine was on the second page. But sometimes when you get this many results, like another property I have here is, when you get this many results, you may want to just put in the first couple letters with the street name. You don't even have to put the whole thing. And then I'm down to one match. I'll hit results, and then boom, my subject property is right there. It's a lot easier than putting in the full street name because sometimes you have a typo, it doesn't come up. So I always want to do my best to make your life as easy as possible. So again, street number, street name, hit results, and then here we have the MLS page. A couple things to know. I know earlier on the call today we were talking about just breaking down each of the things that may be of importance on this page. A couple things I like to always highlight are the listed price per square foot, which is here. The flood zone is here. We have our heated square footage and then total area. Of course, heated is just what's under AC in the interior property, and then total area sometimes include things like the garage, if there is one, or if there is a screen enclosure or some kind of lanai in the back. Taxes are always listed here. The tax ID and the legal description always here. However, just know that on the other side of this sheet, the seller's agent is the one who inputs all this information. So we actually never want to use what's listed here. We want to use what's listed at the county, and I'll show you that in a second, where to find that. This talks about zoning of the property. So this one's R2, makes this property a little bit more unique because you can put a accessory dwelling unit in the back or an ADU. The lot size is here in acreage, and then here it is in lot size in square foot. We talked about sewer and septic tank earlier today. Here is where it would be listed. Here are the dimensions of the rooms. And then lastly, if there's an HOA fee, it would be listed here, but there is no HOA. So this is why this is blank. This is a co-listing agent. Most of the time, let's say the example here, you might be asking, hey, which agent should I contact first? Almost always when there's a co-listing agent here, you always want to go to agent number 2 because normally the top agent is usually like the team leader or broker. But Andrea is the one who's actually handling this listing for any questions and stuff like that. Sometimes under realtor remarks, they'll make a note of, hey, contact listing agent 2, but they don't have that here. And then here is the title company. but of course they don't have this listed. So they're a little bit more messy with this one, but I'll kind of show you what to do when it's not listed. But normally the title company is listed here. So I have a couple screens open. Number one is my MLS sheet, and number two, I'm going to go to .loop. So let's say we start from scratch. You just go to .loop.com, you log in, and then you kind of get this page here. To start a loop, to start a file, I'm going to hit this button in the upper right-hand corner that says Add Loop. And I'm going to search this property up. One of the things I really like about .loop is that it auto-populates all the information that you would need to really save you as much time as possible. But you can see in this case, like I'm typing the address, is not coming up. You may have to scroll down a little bit, but if you ever have this issue, you can always copy and paste the MLS number into the search bar, and it comes right up. So in this case, we saw the listing agent was Maria, so it matches Maria, the listing agent, and then the price was $470.49. So I'm going to click on that, and it asks me to import the data. So let's make our life as easy as possible. I'm going to hit the import data button here, and then I'll hit continue. No need to upload a photo. I'll hit done. So now the system is creating a loop. So now that we have a loop, we're actually going to go into the file now. But before we go into the file, we just want to categorize what this is for our sake of organization down the road. Since we are acting as the buyer's agent in this case, we're going to hit purchase. Since the status is we are still making an offer, has not gotten accepted yet, we're going to hit pre-offer. And then sale is what we're going to offer. So in this case, we're going to offer $460 on this property. And then I'm going to hit this address, and that's going to take me in the loop. Now, I have a certain order that I always like to kind of do things when I go in the loop, which is I like to scroll all the way down to the bottom first, and I like to add all the people that are associated with this transaction. So going back to the MLS sheet here, you can see this blue house icon, which is the realist details that we talk so much about. I'm going to go in through here, and I'm going to get the seller's information directly from here. So while we're waiting for this page to load, I'm going to hit add person. And since we're adding the seller, we're going to select role of seller. And then under full name here, the realist details names Leah A. Moyer as the seller. I almost always use the mailing label owner name because the county likes to list last name, first name, then middle initial. But people always like to use first name then last. So I'll just copy and paste this information here under seller. And that's it. We don't need to add the seller's email because of course we don't have that information. We don't need to add phone number. So it's just the name and role, and then we'll hit add person. While we have the realist details open, there is a lot of helpful information on here too. How are they vested? So this is a single woman. There is some community insights, like what is the median price of the homes in this neighborhood? It's $786,000. The medium, and they have a 9 out of 10 confidence score that this is what the home is worth. And then walkable score. And then if we come down here, we have the zoning, which is R2. We have the folio ID listed here. Then we have our legal description listed here. You can even see that they have the home property homesteaded, and they're getting a $50,000 exemption off the assessed value of the property. The assessed value is not the purchase price. typically it's 80% or purchase price or somewhere around then. But you'll see last year, the city of Winter Park assessed this property at $380,000. Out of that 380, they're saying 250 is the land value, and the building is worth 130. Some additional information about the property, what kind of siding it has, plaster walls, all these things that will help you just get as much information as you can about the property even before you ever see it. And at the bottom here, there's an algorithm that estimates the property value. So this one is a little bit all over the place from 381 all the way to 482. And they're saying with a 75% confidence score. Again, this is not the end all be all. This is just another one of the tools in our toolbox to use to determine value. But this one, for instance, is at 431, so it's really low because it doesn't really take account the neighborhood. Lastly, this is the listing information in the past, so you can actually see in 2010 the property sold was listed at basically 125 and it sold for almost 79,000. But in 2006, this person bought at the height of the market and they actually purchased it for 274. So I mean, look at that price difference in 4 years. So this starts to paint a picture of kind of what's going on. And even better is we get to see all the mortgage information as well as county records. So I'm really interested in this information here because I can see in 2020 this seller refinanced the property. Rates were pretty good in 2020. They refinanced the property, probably took some cash out, and took a 30-year mortgage on the property. If there's any foreclosures or anything like that, it'll show up here. And then lastly, we spoke on this briefly, was here are the lot dimensions. So we have 60 feet of road frontage on Minnesota Avenue, and the property is 91 feet deep. So going back to the people involved in the transaction, I'm already listed here, so I'm going to label myself as the buying agent. And I am going to go in my email inbox here. I'll have a client, he's emailing me his information. So for now, I'm going to put in his name. He hasn't sent me this information, but you just put your buyer's information here. So let's just say he sent me his info. His name is efssmith@gmail.com. Boom, hit add person. If you have a husband and a wife, you can add one with a spouse again. So if you have, let's say, Jane Doe, then you put in their email address. Don't need to add phone number. You hit add person. So now we have all the parties that are involved in this transaction. Pardon the banging, if you guys can hear that. Again, I have people working on the house today. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull all the documents that we need into the loop. So let's just go down the order here, guys. Number one is the as-is contract. I click templates. I go to Florida Interactive Forms. I like to save myself some work. I like to type in as is, and you can see if I just type in as, the second search bar, the document that comes up is as. So I'll copy that. The seller's disclosure and the HOA disclosure here is always going to come from the seller's agent, right? However, in this case, in a normal circumstance, we would have a paperclip icon there, but they don't have it. So that's okay. What do you do in that circumstance? Then we can submit the offer without it. And then in that first initial email, we can request those documents from the seller's agent. Since there is no HOA for this property specifically, there is not going to be an HOA disclosure. So the only document we're missing from the seller side is the seller's disclosure. Let's move on. We need to get the compensation agreement. So I'm going to type in I like to normally just put in comp, and then kind of like the fourth or fifth one down the road, you see compensation agreement, seller to buyer's broker. So this is us requesting commission and negotiating our own commission from the sellers. So we're going to check this box, hit the big blue button here, it says copy. And let's just keep going down the road here. We have the wire fraud disclosure and affiliated business disclosure. This comes from EXP because those are EXP specific forms. So I'm going to go to skyslope.com and I'm going to show you guys how we would get those forms. You hit the login drop down and you go to forms. You're going to log in, put in your information in. And then once you're logged in, you are going to go to templates, which is on the top here. And then once you go to templates, there's a button here that says browse libraries. So you're going to hit the browse libraries and then you're going to hit wire. So if you just type in wire, you'll see we'll have a wire fraud for the buyer, wire fraud from the seller. So I'm going to click this button and then I'm going to hit download. So now it's in my folder. Sometimes it's a zip file, so you may have to unzip the file by double clicking on it, but now here it is. And then next, I'm going to hit this X here to get me back on the previous screen, and then we're going to look for the affiliated business disclosure. So if you just type in the first three letters AFF, we have these 4 documents that come up. We have one in English or Spanish, so the Spanish one is great for your Spanish-speaking buyers. So again, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on this form and I'm going to hit download. Comes up to my folder, I unzip it, and now we have our 2 forms. What I like to do, guys, is I have a standard folder that has a blank copy of those documents. That way, every single time I write a contract, I don't have to worry about it. So you can create a folder that says, standard documentation, and then just add the wire fraud and the affiliated business disclosure in there. And then that way you never have to take the extra step of going to SkySlope. So now I'm going to hit browse, and I'm going to pull those 2 documents into the loop. You can upload multiple documents at the same time. So now we have 4 documents. So we're almost done with this list, yes, but now we have the exclusive buyer-broker agreement. I like to use the one from .loop, and I'll explain to you why in a second. So I'm going to go to Florida Interactive Forms, and I'm going to type in buyer-broker. There's many different versions of this form, but we want to find the one that says transaction broker. So it's not the first one, not the second one, not the third one because that's single agent. So it's the 4th one on my list where it says exclusive buyer broker agreement transaction broker. We're going to click on this form and hit copy. So now we have all the forms that we need to start filling out the contract.